Welcome to the Inside Scoop Live podcast, where indie authors get personal about their books, their writing, and their passions. I'm your host, Sherry Hoyt. Join me for some lively conversations with debut indie authors and seasoned veterans alike. It's a great place to find your next amazing read or even get inspired. So sit back and enjoy the show and let me know what you think. Hi, everyone. Calvin James is back today to talk about the second book in his children's series, Christmas Sunrise. Calvin is a truly gifted storyteller, and I'm so excited to share our conversation with you. But before we get started, here is the inside scoop on the author. Calvin James was promoted to dad in 2017. After the birth of his son, he tried to think of ways to educate him about life and the ever-changing world. Out of this desire, his company, Calvin James Creates, was born. The mission statement of Calvin James Creates is to share children's stories, novels, and music that promote the values of truth, kindness, friendship, love, and hope. His first book, The Colored Water Fountain, was released in December 2021. The second book in his children's book series, Christmas Sunrise, will be released in December 2022. To learn more about Calvin James and his work, visit calvinjamescreates.com. Well, hi, Calvin. Welcome back to Inside Scoop Live.
All right, thank you for having me again, Sherry.
I was so excited when I heard your second book was out. Tell us a little bit about Christmas Sunrise.
So the funny thing about this book, I actually kind of forgot that I wrote it. Because I'd written my series of children's books, and I was about to begin work with my illustrator on another one. I was like, oh, wait, I forgot about that Christmas Sunrise, man. So I called her. I was like, hey, I got a Christmas book. Maybe we should do that instead, because she was still in school and we were kind of under a time crunch because she didn't graduate till May, and I thought this would be a little bit better. And it was a different tone of book than The Colored Water Fountain. So it's basically just 3 short stories about a grandmother speaking to her grandson about all the things she loves about the holidays.
So you forgot you wrote it, actually. So when you did write it, I'm assuming you had written it was over a year ago?
Oh, longer than that. That was probably written, let me see, early 2000s probably. So probably 2005.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was, because it's very different. The Colored Water Fountain is basically your standard story where you have, a protagonist and a goal they're trying to reach. This is just 3 short stories of just retelling certain instances in life.
Mm-hmm.
Very different from what I write now. So yeah, it gives you an example of how busy I am that I forgot about that. I was like, oh yeah, that's a good story. So.
Yeah. I love that you wrote it. I rarely see children's books divided into short stories like that. So I really loved that unique feel.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So was it just several stories that you just wanted to tie together somehow under the holiday theme?
Yeah, because at the time I was working on different Christmas ideas, and they're all very different in terms of their rhyme scheme and things. But I wanted something along those lines, and so I wrote it and just kind of forgot it because I hadn't really gotten into the plan of making Calvin James Creates yet and all those different things.
Mm-hmm.
And then after The Colored Water Fountain, I had laid out the next 9 years of books, and I was like, oh wait, Christmas Sunrise, I forgot about that. And so I was like, okay, let's do that. And again, because of the time crunch with my illustrator being in school, I was like, this would be a good one just to do. It's short, it's a different format, and it'll appeal to a different audience since it's a much lighter affair in terms of tone than The Colored Water Fountain.
Yeah. Also though, while Christmas Sunrise is a holiday book, I feel like the themes reach beyond the holiday, the religious holiday, so to speak. What are some of the messages that you hope readers take away from this book?
Well, just the feeling of Christmas, because I live in Florida, and it's about the most un-Christmassy place. It never really feels like Christmas. And I just remember that those 3 stories kind of illustrate what I would feel as a kid, with my family, all those times when I was, it was in December, we still had school, but you think it was going to snow. So I'm like, oh, I hope it snows, and, staying up Christmas night, and the big thing about just being with family. So that's some of the themes and the feelings I want readers to get. I'm always stressing those 5 themes of Calvin James Creates of truth, kindness, friendship, love, and hope. And so those themes kind of permeate throughout all 3 stories, but especially family. It's There's very few times during the year, especially when everyone has jobs and kids, when everyone can get together. But the Christmas holidays is one of those times that people can take advantage of being together, and hopefully that's what people get a chance to do when they're reading this book.
Yeah, it's funny how this one holiday things just seem to shut down. And it's
Yes.
really the only time that people have to do that. So, yeah, absolutely. So, do you still have family where they get snow on Christmas?
Oh yeah, I'm the only one who left the nest, so to speak. My brother, my two sisters, and my parents are all still in upstate New York. So they're still in a place where it feels like Christmas.
Yeah. Now, has your son ever seen snow? Do you go up north for Christmas?
He has not seen snow yet because we were gonna go up a few years ago, but then COVID hit, and then the world was just kind of shut down for 2 years, and
Oh, that's right.
and, and so we weren't able to go. We're hoping not this year because I have another son coming in November. So
Oh,
yeah, so we won't be going anywhere this holiday season, but hopefully next holiday we'll be able to get him to see some snow.
yeah. Well, congratulations. How
Thank
nice.
you.
Yeah. Now, talking a little bit about the holiday and such, was there any concern about excluding audiences outside of the faith when you were writing Christmas Sunrise?
I didn't really think about it along those lines. I was hoping that everyone would find something to enjoy about it.
Mm.
Because the first story, White Christmas, I know I mentioned, we want a white Christmas. But I think everyone can relate to, looking outside and news reporters saying, we're going to get snow this evening. And you're like, all right. And you get all excited and the clouds are gray. And then the next morning you wake up and there's nothing. Um, Everyone can relate to that feeling of like, come on. And then the other stories are like, centered around Christmas. But I hope that, everyone can get something from reading the book, even if it's not particularly about their faith, because the book's about just being with family around the holidays. In the beginning of the book, that's what I say. I like this book is for everyone who loves the holidays, no matter what they're celebrating.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of your work. And when I read your first book, The Colored Water Fountain, I was struck with the originality and the authenticity and just a unique feel to it. And I think you've done that again with Christmas Sunrise. It made me wonder, where do you get that creativity from? Are there any other writers or other kind of creators in your family? To what do you attribute your writing style? It's
That's a
long.
good question because no one else writes in my family. No one does anything really more creative. I'd have to like really sit down in depth and think about that. I know one thing I always try to do when I write is I try to look at things from a different perspective because at the end of the day, thousands of stories are being written every day and millions of stories have been written already. It's really hard to say something new and different.
Mm,
And the only way you really do that is if you are patient about what you're trying to write and you know yourself as best you can. Because if you don't, you'll end up just writing something that's cliched and something people have heard already. So I really try to take my time and sit down and try to think about different ways to look at different aspects of life and how to tell an original story. So that's what I try to do.
yeah. Well, and I feel like with your characters too, that's one way to make it unique. Those are your characters, and there aren't any other characters exactly like your characters. You build
Right.
them and create them, and I Christmas Sunrise. Oh, the grandmother. Oh my gosh, she just had me. I was just like missing my grandmother when I was reading about her and her reminiscing because my grandmother was a storyteller, you know,
Oh, okay. Oh,
and she didn't write, but she was just
uh-huh.
a storyteller. And so that
Gotcha.
I just, when I saw the grandmother, in the chair reading to her grandson or talking to her grandsons, telling stories, it just really stirred up a lot of feelings for my grandmother. And so that's how you make your characters, unique and your own and in turn create a unique story. Like,
Right.
yeah. Now, you mentioned your illustrator earlier, and I know you've worked with the same illustrator that you used for the colored water fountain, Jordan Pizzuti.
Yes.
How do your styles work together to bring your story to life? Like, are you kind of in sync creatively? Do you tell her what you want, or you just let her run with things? How does that work?
We're very in sync. It's a balancing act because sometimes I feel like I should give her as little information as possible, just give her the story because she's very creative in her own right. And I don't want to cloud her vision because she's come up with like better ideas for the story based on what I've written
Mm,
than if I would have said, hey, do something like this. We've had some conversations after this book, and she's actually said, "Hey, give me as much info as possible so you can paint a better picture."
Oh.
So it'll probably be a little bit different going forward. But the first two books were interesting because she was in school in Georgia, and I'm in Florida, and so it was the interesting exchange of like we would talk like every couple of months, and she would send me, her drafts. I'm like, "Hey, this is good. Keep going in this direction." But the next books will probably be, a different style of a collaboration since now she's back in Florida. So we can have, more meetings and things. But generally, I just say, like, hey, do your thing. Like, I trust you.
Mm-hmm.
I've just learned over the years of working with different creative professionals that sometimes someone will see or hear something you've done and come up with an interpretation even better than what you thought you were going to come up with. You
Yeah.
just have to be willing to not be too attached to your ideas because sometimes someone can come up with something better.
Yeah. I imagine it's hard to kind of let go, but at the same time, I mean, you kind of touched upon it. That's her creative niche, so you got to kind of let
Yeah,
her run with it, you know? Yeah.
yeah. I had a lot of training and and not being attached with my creative projects. I had a really good friend named Chris Hansen's a musician and producer I've worked with since I've been 19 years old. And he kind of gave me a crash course and just don't be attached because once you get involved with the people, it's going to change, and you have to be willing to accept other people's ideas for your work to make it better.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if we talked about this last time, but you published it yourself, right? So you weren't working with someone outside as far as
No, no,
publishing, right? Yeah.
no. Mm-mm.
That's good. Because I feel like, when you write a children's story, you know that you're going to have to, unless you're an illustrator yourself, you're going to have to let someone else do their creative process. But
Yes.
with a publisher, often they have different story ideas, and that would be a little bit harder for me to let go of, I think.
Yeah, it would because it just depends on what the publisher's idea and agenda for the book is. It could be very different from your original idea. So I'm not in that realm yet.
Hmm.
Maybe one day I will be, and I'll have to be, approach that differently. But I'm enjoying my freedom right now of doing things at the end of the day my way.
Yeah, yeah. Now, Christmas Sunrise is the second book in your series, and
Mhm.
you have a number planned, 8 or 9. Can you tell us about a couple of the others, maybe, or maybe some of the topics you have planned for future books?
Yeah, sure. So the actually next year on Halloween, my first novel will be out, and that's called The White,
Oh,
in 2023. And that book is about this family who's on vacation in Scotland, and there's a viral outbreak, and they have their 4-year-old son with them. So they basically have to do whatever it takes to protect their son, regardless of who they become in the process.
yeah.
So it's kind of like a horror suspense book, something I've been working on for a long time, and I'm literally in the final stages of it. I'm just going through editing it right now. So that'll be the next project that comes out. And the next children's book after that is the one that pretty much universally everyone said is their favorite book. It's called River. That story is about a young boy who is striving to grow up to be more than the generations before him.
Mm.
He wants to have more success. He wants to have a better life, and he just realizes how hard that is depending on where you come from. And so that's people who have read that book have really enjoyed it. My wife read it and she cried like through the whole thing. she's like, she's like, stop writing sad books. I'm like, it's not sad. It's kind of happy at the end. So that's the next one. And after that will probably be Long, Long Time. That's about a mother and the boy who the mother's going through an illness, and he's just hoping that each day she holds on a little bit longer.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
yeah, I can actually tell you like the first part of that story. So the first part of that story goes, she drove home in the pouring rain. I knocked on the window and called her name. She came in, she looked so tired. She said to me, "Baby, I need to rest a while. Now I can't keep pretending that she'll be okay, but I don't want to believe what I'm trying to say. In my heart, something tells me she's losing this war. I don't know how long she'll hold on. I pray that I'm wrong and she'll be here a long, long time."
Oh my
So,
goodness.
so that story, like after each refrain, he keeps saying long, long time, hoping that she'll be there a long, long time. So
Yeah.
that'll be the fourth children's book.
Oh wow.
Oh, and then after that, it'll probably be the green ones, and then I'll have four left, which would be the gray clouds, gravity, the desire of your heart. I always forget one. Oh, and asleep. And so those will be the last four. They're all written already, so that part is done. It's just a matter of picking what order they're going to come out in and getting the illustrations done.
Okay, okay. Now you've been putting out basically a book a year. Is there a method to your planning?
Yeah, well, the I'm bringing out the novel now just to give Jordan and I a little bit of a break, from the children's books. That is a heavy workload,
Mm-hmm.
and the novel is a much less strenuous process. And since the other book, River, is along a similar tone as Color Water Fountain, it's a longer children's book in that style, so we need a little bit more time.
Mm-hmm.
And so River will be out May of 2024. And so we did it that way to give us more time to do that book. And there is another novel called Black Code, which I haven't decided when that one's coming out. So I might shift things for that book. So I kind of go with, the audience response to the book in different styles, because basically the Colored Water Fountain, River, the Gray Clouds, The Desire of Your Heart, and the Green Ones, they all have a similar tone
Mm.
in terms of storytelling. And Christmas Sunrise and Asleep are different in that way. And so I'm breaking them up in that way as well. I think I'm forgetting one again. I always like forget one book in my head. But I try to break up the styles as well to give the reader some variety in terms of what they're reading.
Yeah, yeah. As since they're all written, I wonder if you ever get the urge to do additional books or if something comes up and you're like, oh, I need to write about that.
Oh, yeah, I never stop writing. My wife, just says, I don't know how you operate, like, because my brain never shuts off. I have about 4 or 5 novels in my head. Like, I have a controlling idea for each one, and if the controlling idea I think is good, then I'll start doing some preliminary work on it.
Mm.
But Black Code is the next one. That one is the most finished. I haven't written a step outline for it yet because I'm finishing up the white.
Yeah.
But as soon as the white is finished, I'll move on to Black Code. And then after my next son is born, I might want to write more children's books. Because I hadn't thought about that. We weren't sure if we were going to have any more kids, but he's on the way. He'll be here in a little under a month. So,
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, because there's all kinds of sibling stories you need to create now.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's so exciting. So, last time we talked, I asked you if you were going to incorporate any music into your books, and you said yes, but the details were going to be a surprise. Has
Yeah.
anything changed?
Uh, yes and no. This book actually has some music incorporated with it. And so after this book is released, the week after, there will be some type of musical incorporation with it. People can go to my YouTube channel, Calvin James Curates, and they can watch a reading of the book with some musical composition involved.
Oh, how fun. Wow. That's wonderful. I love that idea. So stay tuned.
Yes.
Now, I thought I heard your son back there a little bit.
Yes.
How old is he now, and what does he think about your books and your writing?
He, he's 5 years old and he really enjoys it. Like, I went to his daycare last year and I read The Colored Water Fountain. And I was surprised because he was just turned 5, and so I'm reading to a group of 4 and 5-year-olds. And The Colored Water Fountain is a long book, but they were enthralled. Like, they just sat there and listened and had tons of questions afterwards.
That's
So he really enjoys it.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I love kids that age. They're like sponges. They just absorb everything. And, Oh. Well, I was wondering if you would do us the honor of reading one of the stories from Christmas Sunrise.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'll read the second story,
I was
which
hoping
is
you'd read that one.
One More Night. So, one more night. Streets are empty. The stores are closed. A few more miles and I'll be home. The snow is still falling and I'm so cold, but I don't care anymore because I've got one more night to wait. Here's to those kids who can't fall asleep, but isn't that all of us on Christmas Eve? Hoping the Sandman will come, but even he took the night off. Oh, the sun is not doing its job because this night is way too long. The one time everyone wishes time would fly. Tonight, no one will close their eyes. Everyone will be awake because we've got one more night to wait.
I love that.
Oh,
Now,
thank you.
I mean, who can't relate to that? That's beautiful. That's
Thank
beautiful.
you.
And thank you for sharing with us. I really appreciate that. So now, when does Christmas Sunrise officially come out?
December 1st. So that'll be the official release date.
Okay. And do you have anything planned for the release?
Yes, I'm actually going to be doing it at a bookstore in Cocoa, Florida. I cannot remember the name off the top of my head. I actually just found out about that yesterday. I was doing some coordination with the owner, and that'll be on Saturday, the first Saturday in December.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm sure you'll have all that information up on your website, so we'll be sure and post a link to your website with all that information. So,
Yes, thank you.
is there anything else you wanted to add today?
Not just as always, thank you, Sherry. I look forward to sending you the next books over the next couple of years and hoping that more and more people hear about the books. They're doing well. And so I just, appreciate the opportunity to talk about them and share them with fans.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, Calvin, thank you again for joining us today and sharing a little bit more about yourself and your work and your upcoming stories.
Yes, thank you, Sherry.
Thank you for joining me today for my interview with Calvin James, author of Christmas Sunrise. To learn more about Calvin and his work, visit calvinjamescreates.com and be sure to check out our other interviews on InsideScoopLive.com.